All right, we are starting into Unit 6, which is inequalities. Today we're going to do Section 6.1, which is graphing, writing, and solving one-step inequalities. All right, so we're going to start off with some vocab here. An inequality is a math sentence comparing two values with one of those symbols. Okay, now just to make sure, let's go through what those symbols mean. So this first one here, this one is a greater than. The second symbol there is a less than. The third is a greater than or equal to. And the last one is a less than or equal to. Okay, now an easy way to kind of think about this, if you have trouble memorizing these, if you look at the less than, you will notice that they are pointing to the left. So less than always points to the left, starts with an L, L and L, left, less than. Okay, so just an easy way to kind of keep it straight there. Hopefully you can do that. So solution to an inequality, all possible values that make the inequality true. So when we look at an inequality, we're just going to ask you, like, what are all the possible values? So for example, if I said to you, what are the solutions to x greater than 2? Well, you could say things like 3. 3 is greater than 2. 4, 20, 156. Those are all greater. But we also have things like 2.1, 2.12, 2.17. We could do all of those. So there's an infinite number of values there. So what we do when we want to write the solution is we are going to graph on a number line, because there is no way possible to list all of the solutions to that inequality. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to graph the solutions on a number line. So how do we do that? Well, here it is. We graph an inequality by first drawing a number line with 3 values. Your 3 values are always going to be 0 in the middle, a positive and negative of the same number, the opposites. Okay, and that is what we call the critical value. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a point on that critical value. If it is greater than or less than, it's going to be an open circle. If it is greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, it'll be a closed circle. Then what you're going to do, you're going to shade to the right if you are greater than the value, or shade to the left if less than the value. Okay, now do not just assume looking at the symbol. You have to read the statement, okay? Because sometimes the variable's on the opposite side, so you need to be able to read it from both ways. Okay, so let's take a look here at the first one. It says x is greater than 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put 0, I'm going to put the critical value of 12, and I'm going to put its opposite, negative 12. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to 12, and I'm going to do an open circle because it is greater than, meaning I can get really close to 12. I just cannot be 12. Okay? And then it's x is greater than that, so my shading would be to the right. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. X is less than negative 8. So here's my number line. I'm going to put my 3 values in, 0, 8, and negative 8. At negative 8, it's going to be an open circle because it's less than that, and I'm going to shade it to the left because it is less than negative 8. Okay, let's try another one here. It says x is less than or equal to 7. So I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going to put my 3 values in here, 0, 7, and its opposite. I'm going to go to 7. It is less than or equal to, so this time I am allowed to be 7. I just can't be, I can actually be the value of 7 and it would still make it true. And x is less than that, so I would shade to the left. Okay, let's try the next one here. 5 is greater than x. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to put my point 0, 5, negative 5. At 5, it's going to be an open circle. Now, here's where you kind of read this. It says 5 is greater than x. So if 5 is greater than x, then x must be less than 5. So that means we would shade it to the left. Okay, let's try this last one. Here it says negative 3, so I'm going to put my critical, negative 3, 0, and 3. And it says negative 3 is less than or equal to x. So that means at negative 3, I'm going to put a closed-in circle because it can equal it. So there's my closed-in. Now, if we read that, it says negative 3 is less than or equal to x. So if negative 3 is less than or equal to x, x must be greater than or equal to negative 3. So that means it's going to shade it to the right. So on those last two, you got to be really careful of how you read that statement. Okay, let's keep moving on. How do we write an inequality then? Here's what I have found to be the easiest thing we could do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the variable on the left side. Write the critical value on the right side. This is where the open or closed circle is. Okay, so where's the open or closed circle? Then you're going to look for clue words like is greater than, is less than, is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, no more than, at least, those types of things. Taller, shorter, older, younger, those types of words that give you an idea of what you're looking at. Then you're just going to write that symbol in. So here we go. In order to ride the ride, you must be taller, that's the key word here, than 54 inches. So I'm going to put my X on the left, I'm going to put my 54 on the right, and I must be taller, so I have to be greater than. I'm not equal to because it doesn't say you can be 54 or taller. It says you must be taller than 54 inches. Okay, let's try the next one. To play on the playground, you must be at most 12. Okay, so I'm going to put my letter on the left. I'm going to put my number on the right. So X is what to 12? So what does it mean to be at most? Well, that means you can be 12 or you can be less than 12. Okay, so that's how we write it from a sentence. Now, what if I gave you a graph that looks like this? What if I said something like this? -5, -4, -3, and I did this. Okay, so if we look at this, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to put the letter on the left, X. I'm going to put where the circle is, -3. And then I look at that and I say, okay, I can't equal it, but I can be less than that. So it'd be X is less than -3. What if I did something like this? So what if I did -8, 0, and 8? I did a closed-in circle, and I go that direction. So we start off, we put our letter on the left. We put our number where the circle is, 0, on the right. It's a closed-in, so that means I can equal it, and I'm greater than that. So X is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? So that's how we write it from graphs or from a sentence or a story problem type setup. Okay. Now, the last part here on this part is we want to be able to tell if a number is a solution or not. So literally, all you have to do is you take these numbers and you're going to plug them into X. So here's what it looks like. So I've got -5, I've got 1, I've got 3, and I have 5. Now, what I want to do is I want to come through here and ask, is this true or false? So is -5 greater than 3? Nope, it's not. So that's false. Is 1 greater than 3? Nope, it's not. That's false. Is 3 greater than 3? Nope, that's false. Is 5 greater than 3? Yes, that is true. So the only solution we have is 5. Okay, out of that list that they give me. All right, so now we're going to try another one here. So we're going to come in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into the sentence. Okay, so I'm going to take the numbers, and I'm just going to put them where X is. So -6, -4, -2, and 6. And now I'm just going to ask, is it true or false? Is -6 less than or equal to -2? Yes, it is. That's true. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to say, okay, my solution is -6. There's 1. Might be more, so I need to check. Is -4 less than -2? Yep, that works. So -4 is part of my solution. Is -2 less than or equal to -2? Well, it's equal to, so that would also be true. So that would be part of my solution. Is 6 less than or equal to -2? Nope, that's a false. So my solutions that they gave me would be -6, -4, and -2. And there we have how to write, graph, and determine solutions of an inequality. So now what we're going to do is, and this is going to be very similar to what we've done for a long time now, we're going to solve one-step inequalities. So the first thing we do is we simplify if possible. We're going to draw an upside-down T through the inequality symbol. We're going to isolate the variable by using those inverse operations. Remember, that means if my problem has addition, we are going to subtract. If my problem has multiplication, we are going to divide. Okay? Now, there is one special rule. This one's a big one. This one's really important. So star it, whatever here. This is a huge rule. You need to make sure you're paying attention to it. When we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, then the inequality symbol flips. So what that means is it goes from a greater than to a less than symbol. It goes from a less than to a greater than. It goes from a greater than or equal to a less than or equal to. Then once we do this, once we solve it, we're going to graph our answer on a number line. All right, so let's give it a shot. So here we go. We're going to start off on this first one. I'm going to draw my upside down T. I look at this, it says X plus 3. So to undo that, I'm going to minus 3. And that will give me X is less than -7. So now I take that. I'm going to draw my number line. So I'm going to go 0, -7, and 7. At 7, -7, it's going to be an open circle because it can't equal it. And it says X is less than that, so I would shade to the left. And that's how we do that. Okay, let's try this next one. I'm going to start off. I'm going to draw my upside down T. It says X minus 1.7, so I'm going to add 1.7. That's going to get me X is greater than or equal to 4.2. So I come over here, I draw my graph. I have 0, I have 4.2, and I have -4.2. So when I come in here, it says X is greater than or equal to. So I'm going to fill in the circle because it can equal it. And then I'm going to draw greater than. It's bigger than that. Okay, let's keep going. So let's try this next one. So I'm going to start in here. Here I have -2 times X. So I'm going to divide by -2. Now, this is that time. We divided both sides by a negative. So what that does is that flips that inequality symbol. And it would be -6. So what you're looking at right here is you divided both sides by a negative number. Okay, so that's what causes that to flip. So now we come in here, we go to graph this. So now we have negative 6, 0, 6. So here I'm going to do an open circle, and I will shade to the left. Okay? All right, let's try the next one here. So I start off. Here it's 3x, so I divide by 3. Now, if you look at that, I'm not going to flip it this time because what I divided by, this part right here, isn't negative. Okay, so you remember it's what you do to both sides. So the inequality symbol is going to stay, and that would get me negative 3. So now I come in here, I go negative 3, 0, 3. I look at that, I'm going to be an open circle at negative 3. X is greater than that, so that's what that graph looks like. Okay, let's try these last two. Here we go. So we start in, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 3 because we're dividing by 3. So I get x. I'm not going to flip the inequality because what I'm doing to both sides is I'm multiplying by a positive. So now the inequality does not flip. So I come in here. I have negative 18, 0, and 18. At negative 18, I'm going to be an open circle. And it says negative 18 is less than x. So remember, here's our thought bubble. We are thinking if negative 18 is less than x, then x must be greater than negative 18. So that's going to shift me to the right. Okay, let's try this last one then. Here I'm dividing by a negative 4. So I'm going to multiply by a negative 4. That's going to get me x. Now, here's that situation again. We multiplied both sides by a negative, so that's going to flip that inequality and make it negative 48. So now we come in here to graph this. We're going to go negative 48, 0, and 48. I go in here to graph. It says x is less than or equal to negative 48. So I'm going to fill in my circle, and it says x is less than that, so I'm going to shade it to the left. And that is how we solve one-step inequalities.